Once there was a young man named Armin who lived in a small village surrounded by hills and quiet rivers. He was not born rich nor with special talent, but he had something that most people had forgotten: the power to dream bigger than the world allowed him to. When Armin was a child, he would sit on the rooftop of his small house and look at the stars each night. He would whisper to himself that someday he would change his life and the lives of others around him. His father was a farmer, and his mother sold vegetables in the local market. They worked hard every single day to keep food on the table, and yet Armin never saw them complain. Not once. He would watch his father's hands cracked and dry from working in the fields and think that one day he wanted those same hands to hold something more than soil, something that could change destiny itself. Armin grew up with books borrowed from an old teacher in the village. Every page he read felt like a doorway to a new world. The stories of inventors, dreamers, and leaders filled his mind with fire and determination. When he turned 16, he told his parents that he wanted to go to the city to study and build a better life. His father was silent for a long moment, then simply nodded and said, "If you go, son, never forget who you are and where you came from." Those words stayed with Armin forever. The city was loud and unkind. The first days were the hardest. Armin had no money for food or rent. He slept in small temples or on benches in the park during the day. He worked wherever he could, carrying heavy boxes, cleaning streets, anything that could earn a few coins. But every night he studied under the dim light of a street lamp. His dreams were the only thing keeping him awake. Sometimes hunger made him dizzy, but he told himself that hunger is temporary and purpose is forever. One night, an old man who used to walk by the same park saw him reading a torn book. He asked, "What are you studying, young man?" Armin smiled shyly and said, "Anything that can make me better than yesterday." The old man laughed softly and sat beside him. He told Armin that he once had dreams too, but life had taken them away. He said, "Never let life steal your dream, boy. If you hold on to it tighter than pain, it will take you somewhere you never imagined." Those words became a turning point. Armin began to write down his goals every morning, one by one. He would list them: learn something new, help someone every day, never give up no matter how dark it feels. He started helping children who could not afford school, teaching them what he learned under that same street lamp. They would sit around him in the dust and listen with eyes wide, full of hope. Years passed, and slowly Armin's hard work began to show. He earned a scholarship to a small college, and from there he studied engineering. He did not have fancy clothes or books, but he had passion. When his classmates partied, he worked in the library. When others gave up, he pushed harder. Sometimes he failed, but each failure became his teacher. One professor noticed his dedication and helped him get an internship at a small company where his first project was rejected 3 times. Yet Armin refused to stop until he succeeded. After graduation, Armin started working in a big company, but his mind was still in the village. He remembered the faces of children who wanted to study but had no books. He remembered his father's cracked hands and his mother's tired eyes. So he decided to return home 1 year later, not as the same boy who left, but as a man with purpose. He used his savings to build a small learning center in his village. He called it the Light of Tomorrow. At first, no one believed it would work. They said children in villages do not dream, they only survive. But Armin smiled and said, "Let them try once, and they will learn to dream again." Slowly, children began to come. Every morning, he would teach them not only math or science, but also courage, hope, and kindness. He told them that their background does not decide their future, only their determination does. Within a few years, his learning center grew. He started inviting teachers, volunteers, and even some of his old friends from college. Soon the small building turned into a community of hope. Parents who once thought education was useless began to believe that maybe their children could go beyond the boundaries of the village. One day, a local newspaper wrote an article about him, calling him the man who lit 1,000 lamps, and for the first time in his life, Armin cried not from pain, but from gratitude. But life is never easy, even when you succeed. One night, a heavy storm hit the village and destroyed part of the learning center. The roof collapsed, books and desks were washed away. Armin stood in the rain, watching everything he built fall apart. The villagers thought he would give up. They said, "Maybe this is a sign to stop." But he looked at the broken walls and said, "If the storm can take my building, it cannot take my dream." He spent days collecting what was left with the help of the children and parents who once doubted him. They rebuilt the center stronger than before. When the sun rose over the new roof, Armin realized that dreams tested by storms become unbreakable. From that day forward, more people came, to help donations poured in, and within years his small village became known across the country as a place of light and learning. Armin was invited to speak at schools, universities, and even government events. He spoke not as a hero, but as a farmer's son who refused to give up. He told them that success is not built on talent or luck, but on small steps taken every single day with faith, even when the path is invisible. People listened because his words came from truth, not theory. One day after giving a speech, a young student asked him, "How do I know if my dream is worth chasing?" Armin smiled and said, "If your dream keeps you awake when the world sleeps, if it gives you strength when you're broken, if it makes you kind when you could be angry.
Be angry, then it is worth everything." Years later, when Armin grew old, he often sat outside his learning center watching the children laugh and study. He knew his time was short, but his heart was full. He had turned pain into power and failure into foundation. The same boy who once read under a street lamp now lit thousands of lamps for others. One evening a small boy asked him, "Sir, do you ever get tired of helping others?" Armin smiled and said, "No, my son, because helping others is not a burden, it is the only way to stay alive even when life ends." When Armin passed away, the entire village gathered not in mourning but in celebration. They sang songs, told stories, and promised to continue his work. The learning center became a school, then a college, and then a symbol of hope for countless children across the region. And on the wall they painted his favorite words, "Never give up no matter how dark it feels." Years after his passing, one of his former students became a national leader, and during his first speech he said, "Everything I am today started with a man who taught me under a broken roof that even the smallest light can defeat the biggest darkness." The story of Armin spread far beyond his village. People from cities began to visit to see the school that dreams built. His story became an example in classrooms, in books, and on television. But those who truly knew him said Armin never wanted fame, he only wanted others to believe that they could rise above pain. His life was proof that one person with faith can change an entire generation. His journey taught that dreams are not limited by money, education, or status. They are limited only by fear and doubt, and once you remove fear, there is nothing left to stop you from becoming who you were meant to be. Today, when the sun sets over that same village, you can still see children studying under the light poles near the road, and if you listen closely, the wind seems to carry his voice, whispering, "Keep going, never stop, your time will come." Armin's story is not just about success, it is about resilience, the kind of strength that grows in silence when no one is watching. It is about failing 100 times and standing up 101 times. It is about believing in something so deeply that even the world cannot shake you. It is about planting seeds of hope even when you may never see them bloom. And perhaps that is what true inspiration means: to do something today that makes tomorrow brighter for someone else. It means to give even when you have little to share, to smile even when the road is long, and to rise every morning with gratitude because you still have one more chance to make a difference. In the end, Armin taught that greatness is not found in power or wealth, it is found in humility, in persistence, and in love for others. His journey reminds us all that we do not need to be extraordinary to do something extraordinary. We just need to begin wherever we are with whatever we have and never stop walking. So when life feels heavy, when dreams seem distant, remember his story. Remember that once there was a boy who had nothing but a dream, and that was enough to change everything. Because when one heart decides to never give up, the whole world slowly begins to change. And maybe that is where every true story of inspiration begins, not in the moment of victory but in the moment of decision, the moment when you whisper to yourself, "No matter what happens, I will not give up, I will rise again."